Okay, I can get it. I got it right here. All right, this is AP Lit. The students are getting out a packet on diction that we started last week. Yeah.
I also don't have one.
All right, so the first page, we started looking at this. This is, in my mind, this is very useful. This is a tool that you probably are not used to using. Looking at the diction, understanding what it is that you're looking for. They often ask that. It's always an option. They'll always say, when they ask you to write a paper, they'll always give you certain areas to look at, and they'll either put and or any other literary device. So in other words, they give you options. If you don't want to look at the whatever, if you don't want to look at the sound devices, there are other things. You can't do everything. And so one of those things would always be diction, and they often ask you to look at diction. And we looked at this acronyms. If you weren't here, you need to know what it means. This is a tools to look at diction. The L stands for low diction. Do you remember what low diction consists of? How do you know you're using low diction? Anybody remember the top of the page where it says levels of diction? We'll start with the E is elevated, but we get the low in there. It says high or formal diction usually contains language that creates an elevated tone. This is the E, free of slang, idioms, colloquialisms, and contractions. Those four things would constitute low diction. So if you have lots of slang, idioms, colloquialisms, all this is very, very informal. Even contractions, we said when you write a formal paper, you shouldn't use contractions. Instead of can't, you should use cannot. Instead of don't, you should use do not. And I think that's really hard because I don't think probably you've ever thought of the difference. You just say don't. It's a fine word, but it's not elevated diction. And so you want to try to get rid of those things. The elevated diction, this is the E, contains polysyllabic words, sophisticated syntax. Remember, syntax and tones really can't be separated. Syntax is the sentence structure. And there are things that you can say about. I think the thing is you stare at a poem or you stare at a passage and you don't know what to look for, understandably. So that's what all this is about. This is, okay, these are now things you can look for. And the more you look for, the more you're going to get out of it. Your job always is going to be finding meaning in the text. The more meaning you can find in the text, the better your paper is going to be. The more you have to say, the better the paper is going to be. So let's review that. So polysyllabic words, sophisticated syntax, elegant word choice. We looked at this sentence by Hawthorne, although yours wasn't very clear. But anyway, we looked at it. And there were two sentences, remember? There were 45 words in one, 40 in the other. Those are fairly long sentences, a total of 85 words over two sentences. And we counted, I didn't count them, but 1, 2, 3, I'm looking at 10 or 12 easily elegant, what do they call them? Elegant, is that what they use? Elegant or and sophisticated words like discerning and impracticable and multitude and discourse and ignominious. You've now analyzed the diction partially. You've seen the diction, you've seen a pattern, these long words, they're SAT words, and now you've labeled this as elevated diction. And so that's something, now you don't know what the meaning is because you haven't read the whole thing, but the next step would be to take that diction and say, how does it contribute to the meaning? And then we looked at neutral diction, which is standard language and less elaborate words may include contradictions. And we, as we finished up the other day, we counted 118 words. You can write these down just so that you can see the difference. Here's 6 sentences with 118 words. And notice the length of the sentences are 29, 15, 22, 29, 17, and 6. This is Hemingway, the Hawthorne one. There were 40 words. So instead of 40 words, now you got maybe 15 words or 17 words. So this is another indication that the diction is not as high. And so please turn to page. Low diction or informal diction, like Huck Finn, would be an example of something you'd read this year. Everyday language, relaxed, conversational, common and simple words, not SAT words. You don't have to look any of them up. Idiom, slang, jargon, and contractions. And then this is actually, I don't know if you can read this, but I'll read it for you. This is an example of that. Listen to this. Notice what makes this informal or low diction. And again, that is not a pejorative term. You know what I mean? It's not a negative term. It's not a judgmental term. You're using low diction. That makes you a bad person. That's not what we're saying. There are times when you should use low diction because you're talking to kids or you're talking to your friends, because that's not the time to, to speak probably at this other level. But then there are times to use the formal diction. This, more often than not, you're probably more the neutral. But you need to be able to acknowledge what kind of diction it is and even use it. All right, here's the passage. 3 quarts of milk. That's what it was. That's what was in the icebox yesterday. 3 quarts, 3 whole quarts. Now they ain't none, not a drop. I don't mind folks coming in and getting what they want, but 3 quarts of milk, what the devil does anybody need with 3 quarts of milk? Well, let's just analyze that. Besides the obvious contractions, what else makes that informal or low? What other things that are done in that? How about Elizabeth? What is it about that? And remember, what makes it is it's conversational. What makes more elevated diction is sophisticated and multi-syllable words and elegant word choice. So tell me what makes that informal.
All of the sentences are really short and they use very basic words.
And are they even complete sentences? No, they're not even complete. They're fragments. 3 whole quarts, that's not a sentence. 3 whole quarts, that's not a sentence. Not a drop, that's not a sentence. What else do you notice about it? John, what else do you notice about it that makes it informal?
Just some of the word choice is kind of.
Yeah, tell me what are the word choices? We notice the contractions, ain't and don't.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, it sounds like what the devil.
Yeah, so it's very good. That would be considered an idiom. Idioms don't make sense if you analyze them. You know what an idiom is? Like that. What the devil? What does that even mean? I don't know, but we just say it when we're exclaiming something. So that's a good example. Anything else you notice that we did not say, but clearly is going on in this passage? Davis, what else makes this low diction? And it's not even something we pointed out that constitutes low diction, but we clearly see it here.
He's like kind of asking the reader a question. It's kind of like conversational.
Right? Anything else? Don't you notice the repetition? I mean, that doesn't have to be low. Shakespeare uses repetition. We'll see that a lot, but 3 whole quarts, or 3 quarts of milk. 3 whole quarts. The word quart is used several times. We pointed out that, here the word work, that's not low diction. Paul's writing in very, I don't know what kind of Greek he's writing, but that's just something to note about it. And again, maybe not the diction. What can you absolutely say is going on when an author repeats something several times? You've said this before. This is an answer you give a lot, yeah.
Like maybe
Sure. You said that in one of, on the quiz we had the other day. I forget what
Attention
word.
dialect students, if you are a student athlete and you are in your jersey today, please come to the office. If you are in your jersey today and do not have a polo for picture day, please come to the office. Thank you.
So repetition is always for emphasis. All right, so let's take a look at it. I want you to know what these words mean. And so let's just read through them quickly. These are types of diction, okay? Guys, and I got your attention. I can't compete with polos and jerseys and dialectic, but we'll try here. Types of diction, slang. You know what slang is. You recognize slang, recently coined words. They're words you hear in songs. I guess suppose the profanity is slang. We kind of know you don't use profanity when you're writing in this context, but you know what slang is. Secondly, colloquial expressions are non-standard and regional. So colloquials are the y'all that we say. I try not to say it anymore. I don't know why. I don't know why would I be ashamed of saying y'all. But yeah, every part of the country has certain sayings that is regional, and that's what colloquial expressions are. What is jargon?
It's similar to slang, but specific to a profession or hobby.
Right, not a region or people group, but occupation or hobby. So if you're soccer, there's certain words you guys use. Somebody told me the other day, I've never heard, what was the word? I've never heard this word used in soccer. It's the goalie parried the ball. Is that something people say, or was he just pulling my leg? Because I've never heard people use that. You know what a parry is in fencing?
Is it true 90?
Anybody ever use that?
Fencing, it's just sword fighting in general.
All right.
It's as opposed to a block, knee, or whatever, but with your sword. letting it come to you.
Does anybody recall that ever being used in soccer? I don't know. How about volleyball? To me, it's like you say,
They're not the real
swords and fencing. All right, number 3. Dialect is also a substandard subgroup. Here's an example from Mark Twain. Who is this speaking? I don't know who's speaking. Show there's ticks aplenty. I could have 1,000 of them if I wanted to. It's language with its own vocabulary and grammatical features. So, the beginning of Huck Finn, Mark Twain talks about the types of dialect that he uses. I'm amazed that he was so attuned to dialect, because I think it's hard to write that. I've never tried. All right, so that's the L and the E, the low and the elevated, and then the in between, the neutral. We'll go to the A now. A stands for abstract, and the opposite, concrete. So, is the author using words to describe physical qualities or conditions? Let me read this to you, and I want you to mark the words in here that are concrete. It's similar, very similar to imagery, which we did Friday with October. Remember, I asked you to go through them, find images. Well, concrete words create images. They're words that also appeal to motion or sight, sound, smell, touch. So they are words that describe the physical appearance of something. So get your highlighter out and just mark the words that are concrete. The tears came fast, and she held her face in her hand. When something soft and furry moved around her ankles, she jumped and saw it was the cat. He wound himself in and about her legs. Momentarily distracted from her fear, she squatted down to touch him, her hands wet from the tears. The cat rubbed up against her knees. He was black all over, deep, silky black, and his eyes, pointing down toward his nose, were bluish green. The light made them shine like blue ice. Piccola rubbed the cat's head. He whined, his tongue flicking with pleasure. The blue eyes in the black face held her. Toni Morrison is a modern African-American writer. What are the concrete words there, Tyler? Just give us some of them. Words that particularly describe physical things. There you go.
Black,
Keep going, yeah,
bluish green,
sure,
blue eyes.
all right. Madison, add to that list.
Silky black, black face, and that's all the ones I said.
Yeah, those are sight. How about other things like, imagery that deals with sound or smell, yeah?
Held,
Alright.
jumped, squatted, wound,
Wound, that's a cool word. He wound himself about her legs.
rubbed, shined, rubbed again, winds, flicking, wet.
All right, so clearly she's describing physical appearance, and so they're concrete. That's just another way. They're not like two separate categories. Imagery is the term we use to describe that too. Imagery is created by words that appeal to concrete things, physical things. I like the word flicking his tongue. I don't even know what that is. If you spend any time writing as you keep going, I don't know if it's just true. I don't think it's just true with story, writing, fiction. You'll appreciate verbs. I've come as a teacher and try to write sometimes. I realize, wow, that sometimes just the verbs of your writing will get better if you eliminate adverbs, forms of the verb to be, is, am, are, was, were, be, being, been. The word very, I had a ninth grade student, had to write, 10 sentences, and in 6 of them, every word was very. Every adjective that they found, they put the word very in front of it in order to make it stronger. Like, he's not just vehement, he's very vehement. That's unnecessary. You don't need to add the word very. In fact, it creates the opposite effect. It diminishes the power of the word rather than enhance it. So you wanna, there's a little tricks you'll pick up with, but I promise you, if you're not concerned about that, the people reading your paper are. You might pick up points because you're just a good writer. You didn't say, maybe you didn't say it as, your ideas weren't as strong as the next guy, but man, you sure know how to write. And that's gonna make a difference. They're looking for that, and I don't know that I can teach that. It's kind of thing, no one really ever taught me those things. I just wrote, you write a paper. One thing, I wasn't a great reader. I just didn't read a lot, and that really handicapped what I was trying to do. If I was gonna be a good writer, man, you can't do anything about it if you're not reading. All right, so the opposite of that is abstract. So the A is the abstract and the concrete. Abstract refers to ideas, emotions, conditions, concepts, intangible things. I don't think we've read this yet, but look at the words: impenetrable, incredible, inscrutable, inconceivable, unfathomable. These kinds of they're big words, so they're elevated diction, but they're also abstract. I like authors that use both, that know how to describe physical things, but what makes them more interesting is they can also elevate it to more abstract ideas. All right, and finally the D. The D stands for denotation, which is, now somebody said, I don't know if I counted it off or not, but the exact definition of word, I got that. I'm sure I gave credit for that. But I like the word dictionary, okay? Because that tells you exactly, you're looking at what the people now people don't make up definitions. Dictionary people just discover what the definitions are and write them down. Then they don't create the definitions. Maybe they create the wording of them. But that's what a denotation is. And then a connotation is a very useful concept. That's the D, the denotation and the connotation. The connotation is the implicit rather than explicit meaning of a word. Consists of the suggestions, association, emotional overtones attached to the word. For example, the word house has a different emotional effect on the reader than the word home, with its connotation of safety, coziness, and security. Have you ever thought of the difference between the words mother and the words mother-in-law? The dictionary definition, the denotation is mother-in-law, is your spouse's mother, right? Does it say anything there about being mean, because if you think of the movies and the reference, the jokes, the mother-in-law is always not the father-in-law, but the mother-in-law is always the brunt, takes the brunt of most of these jokes. I don't know why, but when you hear mother-in-law, often you think of something negative. By the way, ladies, you're gonna be probably is a good chance you're gonna be somebody's mother-in-law. You know, that you're gonna be the mother-in-law. My wife is a mother-in-law. She doesn't think about it that way, but she is. But the word mother, nobody dislikes mother, mom. And the definition is just as dry as the mother one, although now, you know, have you heard this? Now, some people, you know, somewhere in this elite, maybe up in the colleges, are calling them birthing persons. Have you
I'm
heard
sorry,
this?
what now?
Birthing persons. You see, you know what, you know how the
You can't
language,
rise the word mother.
you know how the language is under attack. I'm serious.
Yeah, it's very nice.
You're a non-birthing mother, you're a non-birthing person, and you're a birthing person. However, I should point out that there are some ultra elite groups, you see this come through the news.
This feels very 1984-esque.
Yes, exactly, but you see some people trying to say, well, men can have babies. And that's just kind of out of the realm, like 2 + 2 = 5. That's literally what they're trying to get us to think. But you see what happens when you change the language? When you use certain words, it makes you angry. That's ridiculous. But it's something to look for. As you look through a poem or a passage, which we're going to do, well, if we have time, we're going to do that. Good writers use both. I'll tell you one other thing about denotation. I heard that the word spring, S-P-R-I-N-G, has 21 different denotations. I mean, you can come up with a handful. Think about it. It's the season. What else is spring?
It's a physical
Like
thing.
jumping.
It can be a verb.
It can be a verb, it can be physical spring.
The water.
It can be where water comes from.
It could be like a spring on like a mattress.
So authors pick. Listen to this. Authors pick words. Authors pick words for their connotative value, like mother-in-law, and their denotative value. Sometimes, like we're going to read a poem. I think it's Shakespeare. It's a sonnet. He writes a poem about this man and this woman who are lying to each other. And the whole poem is about the fact that they are pretending to be people that they're not, and the other person knows that they're pretending to be somebody they're not, and they're okay with that. In other words, they're lying to each other, and they both know they're lying to each other. And the word lie in there is often means just that, to tell a falsehood, and it can mean to lie down. So, you know, in that poem, it uses the word lie several times, and those aren't connotations, those are denotations. To lie means to be horizontal. To lie means to tell an untruth. He uses both meanings in the poem. So that's what poets do. When you're only writing 14 lines, particularly, you can really have fun. The writers do with these words. They're trying to pack a whole lot of experience into 14 lines. The best way to do that is to suggest meanings and sometimes to be ambiguous on purpose. So that's it. Look at the bottom of the page. That's the LEAD thing. Flip the page. I'm just wondering if you can see this. I hope you can. Can you see this on the next page, top of the page? Can you read that? Can you read the side of the ship made in opaque? Is it readable? Okay. This is what I want you to do. I want you to go through this passage, read it on your own, and I want you to label anything that's low diction, circle it, draw an arrow, and write the word L or lead, or L or low. Anything that's elevated diction, because sometimes a passage will have both. It's not just one or the other. A for abstract, C for concrete, D for denotation, and C for connotation. So read the passage. We're not going to read this book, but we are going to read Joseph Conrad. So this is your introduction to Joseph Conrad. Read it and see. The second thing I want you to do, I want you to count the number of words per sentence. So when you read a sentence, count them and write them, and just give you some idea of the syntax of the passage. Again, I think if you do this and work at it, you're gonna learn something just from the experience. Kyle, get us started. LEAD, low, elevated, you pick. What do you notice?
Well, I thought the glassy shimmer of the sea was elevated.
What else is it? Where is that, by the way?
The start of the second line.
Okay, what else is it? And what makes it elevated?
It just kind of sounds good, and it gives a lot of adjectives.
So that would also make it concrete. Glassy shimmer, that's something you can see. It's darkling. That's we would say dark, but yeah, I suppose you could call that darkling. Sure, is elevated. That's not a word we would normally. Nick, what do you notice?
The sea lightning played about his limbs at every stir.
Okay, what do you notice about that?
Played about his limbs. His low diction.
How so?
Well, it's not like proper sounding. It's played about his limbs.
And don't forget, I mean, you certainly, like the word "the" is used by everybody. It's a one-syllable word. It's pretty essential. But we're talking about, what about contractions and jargon and slang? The word "played," what does that mean there? The silent play of the summer light, the sea lightning played. What does the word "play" mean? You think of kids on a playground. But what does the word mean there?
Light, light shining on.
Doing what? When it's the light plays, and you're right, the light is.
Flickering,
moving.
Well, why play? That's what I'm getting at. Why does the word play?
It implies movement.
It is, good. It certainly implies movement. And what kind of movement?
Fast, rapid.
Okay, it's like playing of children, which is,
Kind of unpredictable.
yeah, I was gonna say frenetic. I don't know where that word came from. You ever heard that before? Frenetic, frenzied, fast. You know, the word play.
Frantic.
Have you ever heard that with it, like throwing a ball, hitting a ball, playing a ball, the play in it? Have you ever heard that? I don't know, golf, is that something you would use in golf? But it's something, like you say, it's about the motion of it. To me, that's a little bit more elevated. How about it, Kayla, more words? There's a bunch of words here. We haven't even talked about the length of the sentences. Hang in there with me. Okay.
I mean, like, absolute stillness is kind of elevated.
Wait, what are you saying about that?
Like, it's elevated.
Why? Just the length of the words?
No, it's just like describing how still it is. Like, it's not like,
What makes that elevated?
like that it's absolute. That
What-
it's,
Elevated, of course, means
well,
elegant
It's like an
and-
adjective of the stillness.
Right, but remember, what elevated means the sophistication of the word, the length of the word. I just want to make sure we understand the difference in between Hawthorne, all those big words, and Hemingway, all those just normal sounding words. That would be the difference between elevated and just normal language. But that's fine. Tyler, what else you noticed?
I said opaque was elevated.
Sure. But remember what your job is, and we're kind of all doing the job of one person here. We're trying to find patterns in it. So you got to have multiple answers to these questions. What else did you notice?
The kind of like greenish cadaverous squatter, so that was.
Yeah, how, how about Max? Good.
Let's see. Said green, dimly pale.
Okay, what are we talking about there? What did you label
The
that?
dimly pale oval. I said that was both concrete and elevated.
All right, how about it, Ethan?
I noticed like the size of the sentences.
The what?
The size, like how many words were in the sentence.
All right.
They were all pretty big. They were all over 15 words, except for in the middle. There's the short sentence. He was complete before the head, and after that, a headless corpse. So So those were like the two short sentences.
That was a sentence, right? The headless corpse?
Yeah.
Was that just a 3-word
Yeah.
sentence?
Mhm.
Have you ever tried that? Have you ever been conscious of, I think I need a short sentence here, maybe even a fragment? I would not count off, but you know, sometimes I count off for sentence fragments, sentence run-ons. But when you're creating a large essay or something, that could be very effective to throw in a sentence fragment, a short thing, while, you know, after you've had this long sentence. Follow me on this real quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, okay, 11, I think there are more than 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 sentences. I didn't add up the number of words, but 19, 15, 41, 10, 7, 10, 27, 47, 3, 7, 27, 20, 27, 28. Remember Hawthorne, 40, 46. These are most of them are 20s, 25, so they're not that long, and some of them are very short. Circle these. Opaque belt, if you haven't. These are words I've heard in some other. Darkling, glassy, shimmer, elongated and pale, faint flash of phosphorus. What additional thing is the author done there? Faint flash of phosphorus. Alliteration. Flickering. Oh, add flickering.
It's using a PH instead of an F.
Right, and flickering, add that. Sleeping water, elusive silent play of summer lightning in the night sky, greenish cadaverous. Circle these. Tiny plot, short hiss, tiny pale oval, shadow of the ship's side, lightning play like a resting swimmer, ghastly silvery fish-like. So a lot of concrete language. Did you see the one piece of jargon there, the one word that's jargon?
Is it spar?
Yes. Do you know what a spar is? I'm not sure I do either. I climbed on the spare spar and leaned over I don't know, but it must be on the edge of the ship.
It's more or less on a ship, the spar is what holds the top of the mast.
All right.
It's that bar crosswise.
Well, you see, you have to have a little bit of specialized knowledge to know that. I don't, and I don't worry about it. I just accept this is a boat, something on a boat or a ship. All right, we've got some more work to do. Let me finish. One of the things that I like to do after we get through this initial phase is to just hand you a passage, unnamed, untitled, and ask you to go at it. See how much you can find in the passage. I'm not talking about just poetry. We'll be doing a lot of that, and we'll be using this LEAD method. Don't forget to read for tomorrow. There could be a quiz with it. I didn't give you one last time. And the quizzes are simple. You just got to read it. All right? So we'll take tomorrow. Also be your last chance to ask any questions about the test. We'll see you. Busy week. I'll pray for you. Thank you. Yeah, we'll see you. Yeah.